When does a landlord-tenant dispute blow up into something huge, like a 17-page letter sent to the highest levels of government? Well, today we're diving deep into a complaint letter from a Dr. Mohamed Fayad. He details a personal conflict that he says just spiraled into a full-blown crisis over his rights.
And this letter does not waste any time. I mean, right from the very first page, Dr. Fayad comes out and says it in the clearest terms possible. I have been victimized by scammers and thieves. So right away, we know this isn't just a simple disagreement. It's a serious accusation that really sets the tone for everything that follows. So you gotta ask, what pushes someone to write a letter like this and send it to, well, pretty much everyone? It all kicks off with a phone call and a deadline that's closing in. Fast. So the letter opens with Dr. Fayad getting this call from the law office representing his apartment complex. And the news is not good. Not good at all. They tell him a writ of possession has been issued against him. And this is way more than just a notice to vacate. It's a court-backed order. And if you're not familiar, a writ of possession is serious business. This isn't just a friendly reminder to move out. It's a court order that gives law enforcement the power to literally come and remove you and your stuff from the property. So for Dr. Fayad, this wasn't a maybe. It was happening, and it was happening soon. And he's not being vague about it either. The letter names the exact date the writ is set to be executed. This specific date, right there in black and white, is what really lights a fire under him and triggers this whole 17-page plea for someone, anyone, to step in. Okay, but this eviction notice didn't just come out of the blue. According to Dr. Fayad's letter, this was the boiling point of a really long, really ugly conflict he'd been having with the property management. A conflict, he says, was just filled with hostility. And we're talking 17 months. I mean, think about that. That's almost a year and a half. In his telling, this wasn't just a one-off argument. It was this long, drawn-out period of what he calls constant mistreatment.
So what was going on during those 17 months? Well, Dr. Fayad lays it all out. He describes this endless cycle of insults, humiliation, and what he flat out calls extortion. And all of this, he stresses, was happening even though he was paying his rent on time, every time. And this one quote from the letter really sums up the power dynamic he felt he was trapped in. He alleges that the property manager told him on more than one occasion that, quote, she is the law. I mean, can you imagine? It just paints this picture of someone who feels they're completely untouchable, leaving him feeling like he had no recourse at all. And listen to the words he uses to describe the place he was living. Inhumane, unhealthy, filled with lies, hatred, blatant racism, and extreme brutality. I mean, wow. These aren't just complaints about a leaky faucet. He's alleging a deeply toxic environment, one that he says was a flagrant violation of human dignity. So this isn't just about the conflict with his landlords. A huge part of this letter is aimed squarely at the legal system itself, the very system that handled his eviction. He doesn't mince words. He calls the whole thing a procedural farce. And this right here is the core of his legal complaint. He says, a bona fide trial where I could present my defense was never conducted. So what he's claiming is that he was completely denied a fair shot, his day in court. He believes the whole thing was a sham, an unlawful and deceptive process where he never even got to tell his side of the story. And this is where you can really see what he's getting at. A fair trial is supposed to give you the right to defend yourself, to have rules followed, to be safe from threats. But what Dr. Fayad alleges he got was the complete opposite. He says he was shut down, that the landlords committed offenses, and that he was even threatened before, during, and after the court proceedings. And to make everything worse, he says he couldn't get a lawyer. Imagine going through all of this alone. Without any legal backup, he felt totally defenseless. He describes it in these really stark terms, not just as a bad situation, but as the systematic annihilation of his rights by people who lacked, in his words, basic mercy and humanity. Okay, so now we get to what is probably the heaviest, most serious accusation in this entire letter. Dr. Fayad claims that this whole fight wasn't just about a lease or rent, it was about who he is. He points to one very specific incident to back this up. He needed to find a new place to live, right? So he asked for a strong letter of recommendation. But he claims that when they refused, it wasn't just some standard procedure. He believes it was a clear act of discrimination. And why? He's very clear on this. He believes it's because he is, and I'm quoting directly here, a Muslim individual named Mohamed, a name and faith I am proud of. For him, this isn't a maybe. He sees this as the absolute reason for the discrimination he says he was facing. So what did this mean for him in practical terms? Well, instead of getting a letter that would say, hey, this guy was a good tenant, he just got a basic proof of residency letter. And he felt that was pretty much useless for finding a new apartment. From his perspective, this was a calculated move to basically leave him stranded, vulnerable to homelessness. All right, so after laying out this incredibly detailed case over page after page, Dr. Fayad gets to the end of his letter. And he doesn't just wrap it up. He makes a final, desperate plea with a very clear set of demands. And he's not vague about what he wants. He's asking for specific actions to force some kind of accountability. He's like, okay, first, give me all the documents and reports I've asked for, completely unedited. Second, protect me from any more threats from the landlord. Third, you need to look into how my due process was denied. And finally, investigate every single violation I've listed in this complaint. It's a direct call for a major intervention. Which brings us to a really important question here. When you feel like every single official channel has failed you, where do you turn? Who do you even write to? Well, Dr. Fayad's answer seems to have been pretty much everybody. I mean, just look at this list of who he sent the letter to. It is wild. We're not talking about just one agency. He sent it to the California Attorney General, the governor, state senators, U.S. congressmen, the Civil Rights Department, police, courts, dozens of law firms, big banks like Chase and Wells Fargo, consumer protection agencies, and the media. This was a massive effort to make sure that someone, somewhere, would finally listen. And that really leaves us with this one big question to think about, right? What happens when a person feels like every single door has been slammed in their face? Dr. Fayad's letter is more than just his story. It's a raw look at what happens when someone feels so desperate and so unheard by the very systems that are supposed to be there to protect them. It really makes you wonder,